Hello everyone, this is building an effective team, connecting people with happiness and motivation. So first thing first, a little bit about me. I'm 9 years in the industry, started at Testronic as a QA tester, then moved to CD Projekt and worked on Witcher titles, and then as a lead on Gwent and Thronebreaker. And then for nearly 3 years I worked on Ubisoft Connect for Ubisoft Ukraine. And first of all I want to set you the scene. Imagine a team that 14 people that was unhappy, burnout, unmotivated, and Ubisoft Ukraine, as well as Ubisoft Connect management want to change that situation. So they found me, and in May 2020, I was onboarded on Ubisoft Connect to change for the better, and this is the story of how I made it. So this is the graph, and there's a small asterisk. This is the data from February 2022. And then due to recent situation, you'll see further down the line how it changed from the nearest health survey that we did a month ago. So in 2020, we had turnover of 71% and then engagement of 60% and only 14 people. And then after 2 years, we increased that engagement to 88% and then the team grew to 37 people. And then the turnover dropped to 20%. Those are from February, those are the top 10 highest rated questions. And the engagement here works like if it's on a scale of 1 to 6. 6, they strongly agree with us, 1, they strongly disagree with us. So the higher the engagement, the more they agree with our policies and how we manage the team. And I'm proud to say that the highest questions that were answered were I feel comfortable with the team, I feel safe at the workplace, and I feel respected at the workplace. But also they highly praised the leads for the atmosphere they create and how they're being managed, and also feeling good at the team. In order to do that, the first thing first, you need to map out your landscape, and the biggest and the most important tool in your arsenal with the question why. Ask why to everyone that you can, or why the people are burned out, why the project is a state what it is. Everybody can give you the information that you want. So I talked with previous manager, I've talked with HR, talked with all the testers, obviously, on the project with the project managers and product owners to assess and gather information about the people, about the project, about all the processes and problems. And here you have two perspectives that you have to have in mind. One is the project perspective, what's the status and what's everything going on to make sure and to see what you're dealing with, but also manager's perspective to ensure that you know all the problems and the risks. And one of the most important tools in order to do that was doing one-on-ones with my team. I needed to know where they're coming from, where they are, and where they're heading towards. So first things first, I introduced myself, just so we can start building that trust as they get to know me, and then asking their background, what are their daily responsibilities, things that currently make them happy and motivated, things that currently frustrate them and make their life harder. So I don't want to break anything that works, but I want to also ASAP fix things that are broken. And of course, their expectations from me as their manager, so ensuring that they communicate to me what are their needs and what are the expectations towards me, and also their career plans. So are they planning to stay? Are they planning to move forward in terms of QA? If they want to move to another department, but it works for any kind of profession. So this is a very powerful tool in your arsenal. And one of the things that is usually omitted, but very important, are people risks. Because usually when managers are talking about risk, is always project risks, is going to be if the project will be successful, if we're going to be delivering on time and all that stuff, but people risks are usually omitted, so don't omit that step. Also create a list for all the risks that are for the people, especially for those that are important on your project. So are they happy, are they planning to move away? Create that list until there's nothing left, because you have to be proactive. Once the person comes to you, and recently I had a discussion but Marcin, wait, like the person came to me and said, either you fix this or I'm going to leave. And that was his example to showcase me that there is trust. But if already a person comes to you and asks for help with the preface that they're going to leave, that's probably too late. They're probably already searching on LinkedIn, probably they're being headhunted. So you have to be proactive, because when you notice something's wrong, it's probably already too late. One of the things that will help you definitely is something that is called a leader's expose, is creating a framework when you share your values and expectations and the minimum rewards that you will give out to people for doing the things that you want them to do, and also the thing that will trigger you, so the things that are not acceptable for you. This will help you to create that vision for the team, and also and I highly encourage sharing that vision with the people, so they know your expectations, they know your values, because if they don't know who they're following, then how they can follow you. While creating that framework, it will take a lot of ideas from you and put them into a real tangible thing that you can present and allow you to create that vision of the team that you want to create and you want to work with. One of the things that helped me, once I got all those things, helped me tremendously is working with the people, to having frequent talks. I was doing, another time was quite challenging. I was a lead for 37 people at one point. So I was doing one-on-one constantly every 2 weeks, so it meant that my calendar from 8 to 12 was only one-on-ones with people, so minimum 4 meetings every day. Please don't do this, build a proper leadership layer. But having those lists of risks and information from the one-on-ones allowed me to start working with them on a regular basis and using that to have meaningful conversation and providing them with feedback and guiding them to the path that they want to be, and also making sure that the team is going the way I want it to be. One of the things that is helpful in Ubisoft, but you don't have to follow a bigger tool, it's just what I have at Ubisoft, is creating a list of objectives and key results. It's a thing that will allow you to build that path for your team, no matter is it QA, UI, a programmer, will allow you to build a roadmap for your people and for your team towards a common objective. And the framework works in a way that I cannot know because last time I touched testing like physically was like 4 years ago, so they know more than me when testing their stuff, so I cannot tell them directly what they should be doing. So I have the higher objectives, so those high level things that I want them to achieve and do, while they focus on key results, so those low level things that they have to achieve to get the common goal and common objective. The framework that allows to make that meaningful, because those things should be smart. So if I remember correctly, the acronym is specific, measurable, achievable, relatable, and timed. And usually people have hard time translating their key results and objectives to that acronym. So the things that I created in Aero for them to be able to do that is ask following 3 questions. What is the problem you're trying to solve? Or what they want to achieve? Why they want to solve the problem, and why they want to achieve it, and then how they want to solve it, or how they want to achieve it, and then, which is super crucial, the key performance indicators, so how they verify that they succeeded. The key performance is usually the problem, because people usually think in binary, either I did it or not, but then it causes the problem of having those discussions when, for example, I want to create documentation so the people know how to work with my code or with my feature. But then if you just ask, okay, I did documentation, maybe just 1 page, it might not be understandable by everyone. So even though he succeeded by his KPI that he just created documentation, but then it's very hard to assess the quality of it. So it's always good to think about either objective measurements. So if you can find that scientific measurement, then by all means do it. But most of the cases will be stuck with subjective measurements. So in case of the example of the documentation, the person can ask the team around on the scale of 1 to 10 how you find my documentation useful, and then your key performance indicator might be that on average is 7 or 8. Therefore, it allows them to more assess, not on a binary scale, but more on a movable scale, how much they succeeded. And I highly recommend doing that. And then, of course, after answering those questions, it's always good to put those on a checklist with very small items. So objectives usually should take between 1 to 2 years to complete, while key results between 2 weeks to 6 months, and then everything else should be that checklist. This is not an objective framework. You can play around with the time frame of all those things. But this allows them to not focus too much on thinking about the time scale in sense of small actions, because sometimes they will be like, the key result is making a meeting. This is too small of an action to create a key result. But sometimes they will just go too big and put as a key result releasing the game or putting improving something, and then it just goes out of whack. So make sure that objectives are big enough and then key results are small enough so they can be done on a reasonable time frame, and then checklists are very for those small things like organizing a meeting, creating a bug report or creating a report, or I don't know, making a button for a game. Before venturing forth, you have to gather allies. So first things first, probably the biggest ally in your arsenal will be the HR. They have the expertise in people management. They are the lighthouse that help you navigate through dealing with people, and that's how I usually use them. The best example I have is when I was so caught up in balancing the budget for my team and deciding who's gonna get how much money. At some point, I wanted to give to one person a very small increase, and then HR came and was like, "Marcin, I refuse for you to give that person that low amount of money." And it was like a nice, refreshing slap into the face. Like, yeah, like I was too cut into the numbers and the Excel, and it's shameful to give such a small amount. So they brought me up on a correct path. So they really are a lighthouse. And then, of course, they are, as any service provider, responsible for answering team needs, usually on the back office side. That you don't have to deal with, and if you create that meaningful relationship with them, you'll be able to do things that seem impossible possible. The next best person on in your team that will allow you to build that team is obviously the recruiter. They will allow you to build the team that you envisioned, and with them you can adjust the process to your needs. They will help you with assessing candidates fit. You don't have to be the expert on assessing those people, so they will be very useful. And in Ubisoft, we use an SBI model, so situation, behavior, impact, and it's a nice framework of asking for a situation, analyzing the behavior of that situation, what had impact on you or on the team. And a very useful tool in helping create those questions is Lominger competency model. You can find it on the internet. It's a nice PDF with 70 questions when you can look by the behavior you're expecting. So if you're looking for teamwork, if you're looking for creativity, courage, you'll find the corresponding trait. And then you can, from those, there are conveniently done 3-4 questions we can choose and use during that your recruitment process. And for smaller teams, I understand that when you're indie, when you have 7-10 people, you don't necessarily have an HR or recruiter. But the same as with IT or any specialized corporations can took out those specialization and make those as a role. You cannot, but there is still a person that does recruitment. There's still a person that has to do HR. So think about in terms of your responsibility as a manager for that team. Are you a good recruiter? Are you a good HR? So you allow the team to be properly created and properly managed and grow. One of the things that allowed us with the recruiter to change things, it's a very QA example, but it's very nice to showcase that previously we had a very closed question test for juniors when they could easily Google. It didn't provide any meaningful information before the recruitment, so still it made the recruitment process longer. So we switched from a closed-ended questions to an open-ended question when they are presented with several bugs and the situation, and they have to briefly explain how they want to prioritize those bugs and briefly explain why. Those are made in a way that no matter which QA will answer, there's always going to be a different question, a different answer. And those are it's impossible to download game from the library, and then crash occurs when opening the shop. Depending who you ask, they will choose differently, but that's the most important part, that their explanation to that question is important. So the same you can use for UI programmers, any profession. Make sure that you switch from closed questions to open-ended questions and phrase them if you're worried about their technical knowledge. Phrase them in a way that the question they will have to answer, that technical enabled to answer your question. And also the most important part about framing those tests in that way is so that it's better to find a person that is below your technical expectation but it fits your culture fit, and is a person that soft skills match your team, because those are the harder to change or improve, while technical knowledge always can be easily scaled up. The last but not least, the overlooked ally is your company. They hired you to build a team. They hired you to provide the company with the results. So of course they also have to provide you with tools and resources to achieve your goals. So don't treat company as an adversary. Treat the company as your ally, and you have to do it, because if you'll have to ask the company for salary increases, if you want to ask the company for training or going to gigs, you have to have them as your ally and able to do that. And it also allows you to check the company's willingness to give you those things, because if the company doesn't want to give you those things, you now know the obstacles and restrictions that you have as a lead, so you don't make false promises that, hey, a person came to you and I want a salary increase, and then shouldn't be a problem, and then you go to a person that is responsible for accepting the decision. They say, sorry, there's no way we're going to give you that salary increase. On a smaller scale, again, if you're the owner of the company or you're managing as a game director or whoever on a smaller team, make the list of the things you can provide the people, and also ask the people what are the expectations from you as a company owner. Are there any needs for training resources or any going to any conventions or anything like that? So then, if you cannot provide them this now, you have a list of things that you want to work with in the future. Also, if you can afford and if you have big enough team, you have to have leads. They will allow you to have that team that you want. They will allow you to have scalability. There's no magical number like I tried to, and there's no, like I could cite scientific papers, but there's no scientific consensus on what's the ideal number of the team. Agile proposes 4 to 7. I know that there are leads and people that can work even with 15 people. So be aware of that there's a limited amount of people that you can care at any given moment, and those are not those are shared personally with also your friends and family. So there's a limit to the people you can care. So you have to have the leads if you have to a bigger team, and I'm the biggest example when I was doing one-on-ones with the team, and I was doing them with every day. For every 2 weeks, I had that one-on-one, and still when I asked the team, how do you rate my support for you, they said it was very bad. So in theory, I did everything right. I was having those meetings with them and talking to them, but they didn't feel that support, and it's obvious why. You cannot support 37 people at once. So if you have that problem, if you think that there's you cannot give them the quality support that they need, then probably it's time to have those leads. And then obviously you have to mentor and coach them to ensure that they are having the necessary knowledge and mindset to build a team that you want, because those are your hands, you're sharing the responsibility, so make sure that they're properly and well trained. So once we gathered our allies, we have all the information, it's time to connect the team with happiness and motivation. There are different leadership styles. There's transformational style, there's autocratic style. There are different styles depending on what is needed at the time. The thing that I usually subscribe the most on a daily basis is a leader as a servant. I truly believe that my sole purpose in the team is to support them and ensure that have every tool and every resource they have in order to do their work, because they are my specialists on the forefront. Again, last time I've touched any testing was 4 years ago. So even though I have greater theoretical knowledge and I have great insights, I cannot tell them how to test Connect. They have to do it. So I have to share them my power with them, allow them to make the decisions, and provide them tools and everything that is necessary for them to be able to make those decisions. Allow them to be as independent as possible. Again, you don't want to micromanage everybody, especially depending on the scalability. You don't want to look at everybody and telling them what they need to do. And even though it's super scary at first when you have to do it, when I became a lead on Gwent, it was super scary to give certain functionality, which was very important, and production was saying this is super important for us for the release. And then it's not me doing the testing. I had to fully share that responsibility with somebody else. It's scary, but it's super worth it, because then once you allow that person to do that, then you have now a super valuable member on your team. In order to do that, to be able to share that power and able to give them to be as independent as possible, you have to build a safe atmosphere to fail. People should have the ability to learn and fail without fear. So make sure that you build buffers in your project. Make sure that you build a necessary environment in which, if they make an oopsie, if they forget sending a report, if they forget creating the button on time, the failure doesn't cost either their job or position or project too much of a cost. So then if they make a fail, they can tell you about it, and then you can learn from that mistake and move forward together as a team. If you allow people to be fearing mistakes, then probably they will stop telling you about those mistakes, and that's a big no-no as a lead, as a producer, as anybody, because then you're creating yourself small little bombs that they will sooner or later resurface. But you want them catch them as soon as possible. So make sure that people are not afraid to tell you that they made a mistake. The big component able to do that is trust, as it told in 5 Dysfunctions of a Team, Patrick Lencioni. It's a very good book. I highly recommend it. It talks about trust not in the terms of predictability. So if you tell someone, hey, do this to me, they will do it. It's more about trust that if the person tells something, they will be listened to. Because if you don't have that trust, people will fear of conflict. They will, if you say, make a decision and share it with the team, you will have artificial harmony, because if they don't trust you that you will listen to them, they will just, I don't care, just do whatever you want. If you have that thing happening, you will have lack of commitment. People won't care about the decision, about the impact of the decisions, so then they will not hold you accountable for that. So they will lower the standards. They won't keep you, if you start doing crazy things or very low quality things, they won't stop you. And of course that leads to not having proper results that you want, and usually people will also start being competitive on egos and statuses rather on results and accountability. So invest in that trust. I highly recommend on the end of the book there's a test for you to do with your team when you can see which dysfunctions your team have, and have that in mind also that trust and all those steps are on every level of the organization. So it's inside the small agile team or you're in the team. It's going to be the same between you and publisher. It's going to be between you and other teams, higher management, the board. So take notice if the trust not only exists inside your team, but also around your team, and either try to fix it or learn to live with it. Once you have that trust, when you have that safe atmosphere to fail, you have to remember that we spend 8 hours every day together, so we have to know each other, we have to depend on each other, we have to trust each other again. The trust is super important. So you have to build that engagement together. You have to have the team feel like a cohesive unit. The simplest way you can achieve that is doing team meetings. We do 2 types of meetings. One is a very official one that is mostly on work topics or work-related topics, when they can share and talk about those things. But also there's another type of meeting that is more casual, called Lean Coffee, when people can bring any topic that they want to discuss and share with each other, so then they have a time to cool off or share anything that they want. It builds nice commitment and it builds nice engagement together, especially if you can incorporate some way of tracking what they say. So if they say to you, hey, there's a problem that I'm too cold at the office, can we do something about it? Then you write it down, do something about temperature at the office, and then you follow up on it. So then you encourage them to always speak up because they feel that they're being listened to. That's the easiest one. Then we go a little bit on a higher cost, doing social events. So they sound easy to do, but if you were ever on a new team, when you know that there's going to be a social event and you're the new guy in the room, you're going to be a little bit hesitant to join the team, and especially if the team is new. In my case, when I built in a very short time and hired 20 new people, those people don't know each other. So told them, okay, now go and have fun together. That's not going to work. So you have to think about making sure that it's going to be a success, and thinking about how you can engage them in organizing those events or participating in those events. In our case, we found volunteers, fortunately, to take care of that, and it's better always if, instead of you organizing the event, the boss telling them, now have fun, it's much better if they can bottom up. When they see that it's not boss telling them to have fun, but they're going and talking to each other, being, hey, we want to spend time together. Of course, in the end, we are here to earn money, so team building is necessary. So you cannot just focusing on either team meetings or social events won't allow you to quickly or efficiently do that team building when people can trust each other. So you have to have some team building events that focus on on training them how to work with each other in a casual setting. Again, not to have it too much of official of work, because people then cannot relax or build those bonds. They will always think in terms of professional relationship. So you have to have those team buildings in more casual social setting. And you have two possibilities: either try to organize themselves if you feel like it, or you can use paid options. In our case, we use paid options online, but again, you can choose however you want. And other thing that builds engagement is having that sense of progression and accomplishment. If you hire a junior, if you hire a mid, if you hire a senior, once the honeymoon passes, after 1 year or 2 years, they're going to ask those questions, okay, what's next, what I'm doing with my life? So if you don't provide that progression and engagement and accomplishment, they will probably find that accomplishment and progression somewhere else, because natural progression is, okay, I did everything that I wanted on that project, so then the natural progression is me to move to another company. And if it's a very important person on your project, then it's going to be costly and painful. One of the things that I did on Connect, and it's thanks to awesome support from HR, is created something called assessment tool, which is basically a simple matrix that on one hand you have all the skills, soft and hard, on one side, and then as a level to assess if they are junior, specialist, or senior, is based on coaching styles. So you have directing, coaching, supporting, and delegating. Directing is basically having a junior and telling them directly what they need to do, while delegating is basically having like a senior person when you basically say, hey, manage the release or do a feature, and they know everything, and you don't have to tell them anything else, they know what to do. And coaching and supporting is anything in between those two. And this allows us to build a character sheet for every person and allows them to have that progression and accomplishment in their life. It's not an easy process. We have to meet with them and discuss every level. So it has those hard discussions when they're like, I think I'm a specialist on that skill, or I'm a senior on that skill, or maybe I'm a junior. You will be surprised. So when I did that tool for the first time, there were a lot of people that were on many skills they were overestimating themselves, but there were also many skills that they were underestimating themselves. So you can also don't look scared at that they will just use it as a means to push their own awesomeness. Use it as an opportunity to find weaknesses and strengths of a person and align together with you, with HR, and them. What is their evaluation? So then when you have to have those conversations about salary increase or their future, you have a tool that you can rely on. One important thing about that tool is, which is a trap, people will try to use it as a promotion tool, so you have to be very specific that such tools shouldn't focus on promotions. People are not deterministic, those are not game characters. You cannot just level up feedback or level up making UI buttons and then suddenly you're a middle. So it has to be a tool that focuses on their development, so you're putting the focus more on their progression and personal career rather than a tool to go for the salary. And again, try to align them between you and the person and the lead. And in our case, it's always good to align that. In a bigger corporation, is align that tool with whatever company is using. So Ubisoft is using 6 attributes to assess on the different levels. So I was translating that tool to those 6 attributes. And thanks to that, whenever I have to have discussions with other project managers or the company itself about promotions, I can translate information from that tool to the company, so then we have alignment there. Then after all this work, would be awesome to have sustainability, so the work that we did to build that engagement doesn't diminish. I think the best way is to be data-driven, so establish meaningful KPIs. In our case, is 33 questions that we ask people on the different aspects of of assessing the leads, how they feel on the project, how they feel inside the team, and about their future. Measure them in regular intervals. We do them on a 3-month basis, so every quarter. And what I think is super important, to share those results with the team, so they know that the time that they spend on asking those questions is not in vain, and you're doing something with that data, which then allows you to create that nice iterative tool, which at 1 month you ask the questions, get results, plan your actions, and then share that plan with the team for 3 months, execute that plan, and then come back to the team again, ask the questions, and see if there were improvements or not. The other thing you can do is invite them to the table. There's some, I think in some presentation there was, I think today in the morning from Stan Just, about those hungry power people. Don't be a hungry power person. You can invite them to the table and co-create the team with them. In my case, it was super surprising when I thought I had a very good onboarding system, but then the team wasn't happy with it, so I asked them, okay, so help me co-create it. And then they created a great system where we do agile trips. We have 23 agile trips, so when the person joins another team, they go on so-called agile trips. When for 2 days they go from team to team, working with everybody, learning about every team, and then after 2 months of that trip, they come back to us, and then together we can decide what team fits best. Everybody knows the person knows the project, everybody else, and I wouldn't create that process on my own. I didn't know that something can be that creative. So give them that creative power, and you'll be surprised by results. So it doesn't matter if it's on the project side, on the social team side, or any side that exists in your company. Get them involved, get them thinking about what they can do and all the ideas, because that's naturally how you build engagement. If they are co-creating that stuff, they will be naturally engaged. Then the only thing that is left is to plan, execute, analyze, and learn. So have that iterative loop. Do those things on a regular interval, gather data, do actions based on them, share those results with the team, with your manager or your other team in stakeholders. I usually, when I do those surveys, I share them with everybody in the company that is relevant to them, so then they can also provide feedback to us what they think about the results. And it does wonders to get very practical feedback. And then something new for Git. How does it look after another year? So the last survey was in February, and the last survey that we did was, I think, September. So how does it look right now? And before I preface it, what I want to say is support Ukraine, because the biggest and the most huge impact on the team was war. So however you like, either it's by activism or money, or however you want, please support Ukraine. The war is still raging. To give you an easiest example, on Tuesday we had a meeting with top management of Ubisoft Ukraine, and half of the team had to, halfway through the meeting, turn off the PCs and go to the nearest shelter because of a raid alert. And that's a constant daily occurrence for both Kyiv and Odessa, so please support Ukraine. So how does it look after 6 months? The engagement dropped by 3%. We lost also 3 people, and now you shouldn't be using words lost after talking about war. They just left the company due to different reasons, but still the turnover dropped even more, so to 10%. So even with people leaving the company, still year-to-year turnover is really small. So that's a great success. The amount of questions that were 90% plus on engagement dropped by half, so now we have only 7. But still 22 questions with engagement between 80 to 90%, so majority, if we add also those 7, is 29 questions when people either agree or strongly agree with us. And that's the result when we look into data, because first when I get the results, 29 questions have decreased in engagement, and some by even 15%. So at first it looked very grim, but when you look inside the data, and I highly recommend going deep on the data. But the other talk was super enlightening, when you have to be careful how you analyze the data, because there are biases. You might be looking for things or trying to prove your theory. So try to think about that you might be biased and trying to see things that they are not there. So have that in mind. That's why we also allow them to explain. One of the sites in Ubisoft does the survey, but they don't ask the question to the people, why did you choose the answer, which then omits you the data, why they feel they strongly agree or why they think that they strongly disagree. And from that, we got 159 comments. Not all of them are mandatory. So also have that in mind that if you put everything on mandatory, you will discourage them to provide the answers that you want. And also, it's a nice showcase if the question is not mandatory, but they still want to answer that. It means that they are engaged. So the engagement didn't change since February, so we still had 46 positive comments. Positive comments means that there wasn't any negative comment in that, so it was only praising or saying good stuff about the question. The neutral, if it was both positive and negative, so people said, I really enjoy working in a team, but, and then problems that they saw, and then 21% negative when people had only bad things to say for that question. And from the comments, the main two things arose, which is people don't have a clear self-development opportunity, so even with all those tooling that we did, people still don't have that sense of progression, and we know that it might be the case of 3 months not being at work. So for 3 months, leads couldn't work with the team. So after 6 months, if we ask them what is their future, they don't know, because for 3 months they couldn't work on that. And which is very stupid to say, but I had to put it, which is work had serious impact on the team, which is a nice truism. And again, if you look at those top 10 questions, as you can see, all of them dropped. But still, it's super high. So still, 91% people strongly agree that they feel. I mean, the engagement is 91%. So there's a lot of people that strongly agree or agree with that they feel comfortable. They still feel safe at work, which sounds silly when you think about war. And feel respected at the workplace, they feel good in their team. So even if there was drop, and I think that the biggest impact was the war, you cannot say too much positive things or feel positive when you're in that situation. So we attribute most to that, but also we've noticed other things that I will tell later. And those things led us to believe that it's mainly war having effect, because if you can see, the numbers don't matter too much. It's more about the green stuff. So on the right you have strongly agree, on the left you have strongly disagree. So you can see the biggest movement was from strongly agree to agree, even in some cases moving from somewhat agree to agree, and which is I think nice positive that previously we had some people that disagreed with us, but then moved from disagree to somewhat disagree. So it has even small improvements in some areas. So again, I encourage looking into the data a little bit more deep to get as much information as possible. And then we presented the action plan to the team, so that all those objectives and key results, we tried to establish them, but for the past year, we didn't treat them as seriously. So I basically said, hey, please do them, but if you don't have proper setup of objectives and key results, it's not the end of the project of your career, so it's fine. But now we're treating it more seriously, so we're making sure that everybody will have that setup. And also we use Miro board to make sure that those objectives that are mine are shared with the team, and everybody sees what are my objectives and objectives are their leads, and then everybody can see everybody else's objectives. So then if they want to collaborate with each other or get inspired, they can easily reference that Miro board and see everyone's objectives and key results, so then they can collaborate and see what is the vision for the team itself. And also because a lot of questions drop on the leadership, which was quite surprising, we decided, okay, we need to ensure that we increase the quality of these efforts. So we have coaching sessions with the leads every week, hour and a half, to make sure that they are working on highest efficiency in that regard and have the knowledge to work with the team. Also, because even though Ubisoft Ukraine is doing magnificent work with providing workshop, I think the latest workshop was on CPR and what to do in a situation when there's harm to a person. There's, from what we understand from the answers, is that it's still too few. So even those workshops are done on a monthly basis, I think we can do more, so provide that psychological and workshop support, so then people feel more safe and increase that stability or at least sense of control during that war effort. And of course, so for them to feel that their voice is heard, we share those comments with Ukraine top management and basically say to them, hey, we think that my team thinks that the things that you're doing are great, but that's not enough. So the top management knows those expectations. And then for some things in the comments and in the questions, we noticed that we are not aligned with what they need and what are their expectations. So we basically set out to us as a leadership of Connect that we need to work on that and make sure that we know what are the needs of the team and what are the expectations, so then we can manage them properly. Because in some cases, people had too high expectations and the mismatch caused a lot of tension between us and the team, but also in some cases it was mismatched the other way, so they were expecting less than they should, which also is not a good thing. Don't be happy when the person wants less money. If you believe that that he should be paid more or the person should be paid more, make sure that the person is paid the amount that they should be earning, because again, you want to make sure that the expectations of the people are matched with the reality. Either way is bad. And the last sentence I want to share with you is that I want to work with teams that are happy and motivated. I want to come to the office and be surrounded by people that are happy to be at the office genuinely and are smiling. So hopefully with all those tips and tricks and tools, you'll be able to create that team for yourself. So thank you so much. And at the end, after the meeting, connect me on LinkedIn, on Twitter. I was always happy to nerd out either on QA or leadership and management. And then for all those QAs that are listening to that, we have a community of underground game QA, which we share our struggles and connect with each other to help each other grow to be better. And with that, I think it's time for questions.
Hi, really good talk. I think the data points were very helpful as well, just to go through it and see what people are answering to any questions that you actually throw at them. My question is, how do you deal with ego issues within your team or within your past teams that you work with?
Thank you, that's a good question. It's again a matter of what are the expectations of a person. Usually it means that the person has too high too high feeling about themselves because they have overinflated ego. It's again a truism. So it means that the expectations they have are too high, like they think they can do anything, but it means that there's a mismatch between them and reality. They can in reality do less. So you have to have that tough conversations, and that's why I think having those objectives and key results when you can provide facts and evidences, so also the SBI model of situation, behavior, impact. Usually when we discuss assessment, people are like, why I'm only solid performance? Like, I obviously, on regular basis, I do all those things and just generalize. And that's why you have to bring that, okay, but exactly what the situation is that provided that value or impact. So if they think that they are on a senior level, so they come like, when you gonna promote me, or why I'm not getting those responsibilities of a higher person, why don't give me these features or this task. Then you can have those facts and bring them down to reality. Hey, it's because in those situations you didn't provide enough confidence that you can handle those. Which still, it's not easy. Those conversations are always, they aren't always easy, and probably will never be. But that's why you have to build those relationships with your HR, and if you don't have HR, train yourself to be able to have that conflict management, and also build that trust. Again, if you have that trust that they can tell you whatever they want to tell you and be listened, it works both ways. That you trust that whatever you say to them, they will listen to you and not be like, okay, this guy always tell me to those things. So yeah, facts, SBI, and making sure that you can use those to bring that reality and work with others. Especially, I think in those situations, I mean, depending on how you want to handle that, also try to not be alone with that person, because usually it's in smaller companies it's a little bit more tricky. To bring, like, if you are the CEO and then you have people like on the same level, so it's a little bit uncomfortable. So probably in the situations, tough luck. But in a bigger team, you can always bring that. And we have 10 minutes. Thank you. bring an HR or another person if it's possible. So it's a trio. So then if it's a hard conversation, they cannot be word versus word, because usually it makes de-escalates the situation if you have more than one person in that. So those will also be helpful. And hopefully that answers your question. Awesome.
Hi, thanks for a great presentation. You have mentioned that every 3 months you are making this
Health survey, yeah.
Yeah, and you have shown your questions, or at least part of it, 10 of it, and there were nothing related to money. And I feel like I slightly understand why is that, because if you are publishing these results, then there is obvious worry that everyone will think, maybe we should all write that we are dissatisfied with money, and then everyone will be happier because we will earn more. Is it like I think that you have skipped this topic to not allow people to basically, cheat the system?
Yeah. Well, I'm a little bit cheating because I don't ask them directly about money, but I'm disguising the topic about their professional growth. So are they happy in the place they are currently? And then answer why they are not. And usually on this question, I'm not probably saying the question how it is, but we have questions on if they're happy in the place that they are, if they're progressing with their career as they wish to be. And usually they know that those questions also hint at the money. And usually in those questions they tell us, hey, I'm happy with my job, but I wish if I earned more. And
so it is like they have they rate it as a number, and then they can answer in text, and you publish to everyone numbers then, but you don't need to publish text. Yeah, is it like this? Or?
Yeah, I don't publish the text because there's a lot of text of that, and then it's very hard to present with that form. That's why you saw on that slide. Basically, I tried to gather the main thoughts of the people. But if anyone wants to wish, and usually I didn't get that asked by anyone to publish the comments for them, so I never was asked by the team, can you publish the comments as well? But if they want to, I could surely publish them. Probably work a little bit, because the one thing I didn't mention is those surveys are anonymous for obvious reasons. Like people will be less honest if you answer them directly and they have to say their name and surname. Under the answer, of course, in smaller teams, it's a little bit harder. Again, you have to get a little bit more creative. So I would a little bit make the sentence distinguishable, because if we looked really hard, we could pinpoint the answers to the person, but I highly discourage anyone to do so. But yeah, we got, in the past, in the answers, I wish I earned more. And in that slide, we basically mentioned the same slide. Like here, we basically, in that slide, when we all the things, issues from the comments, then we mentioned, I think either last health survey or 2 health surveys ago, people are not satisfied with their compensation. So that people know that we acknowledge that they are not happy, and then we are working actively on that. And I think it worked, because now people are not talking about compensation. So at least I think we had a check-in. We do check-ins like in every big corporations every year when we evaluate people and promote them. And I think we did 14 promotions and a lot of salary increases to make sure that we fix those people that are unhappy with their salary. So I would also avoid asking directly for the money, because obviously people always will say, I always want more money. So that's why it's always good to cheat a bit, and basically instead of asking directly if you're paid well, is to say, are you happy with your current position? Are you happy with how your profession is working? And usually people understand that the question is also about the money or how they're being compensated.
Okay, thank you for a fantastic answer. Great.
Hey, thanks for the talk. A lot of useful information. You mentioned about creating this environment that your team not afraid to fail. How? Do you know any other idea? Do you have any other idea than just showing this by example? That whenever lead fall, he won't be afraid to show that, hey, I also make mistakes.
Well, I think that's a great question. I think you have to be creative. There's no recipe for success that will automatically do that. I think, again, sharing the power with people and allowing them to make decisions and not punish, like, I think that's the biggest important thing. Don't punish people for making decisions, because then obviously you will then prohibit them from taking decisions ever again. I think the nearest example is I had a coworker that in the team that decided to do crunch, even though the policy is known, we shouldn't crunch. If you want to crunch, give us a need why, and then we can budget it, because it's additional cost for you should be paid, so please also say when you crunch. And the person decided on that spot that without consulting anyone that it's okay for her to crunch, even though it wasn't. But I didn't want to punish her. I basically say, okay, in that situation you made the best decision. It wasn't a big deal for the project. Again, building that ability that even if the person, even if she decided to crunch for 8 hours or 10 hours, it shouldn't be a big deal. So again, building those buffers, building those opportunities in the team. 5 minutes, yeah, thank you. Building those opportunities in the team where the person can fail, and still it doesn't get big consequences either for the person. So, they didn't cut off their arm or whatever, or they didn't do something that, they created a completely different feature. So trying to build situations and buffers and build the project around the idea that people should be allowed to fail and learn from those mistakes. And then you'll be able to have that situation when people are not afraid to take decisions, are not paralyzed from making those decisions, because that's the worst outcome, right? Like if they feel that if you have an engaged team and they care about the project, but they're scared of taking action because they feel that there will be some retaliation, so they will be fired or reprimanded or whatever, then probably they will do the worst thing, which is nothing, and just watch the world burn, right? So there's no golden recipe. Just ensure that. I think probably once you get into the habit of giving those tasks or opportunities for them to fail, and you're too scared, and you're always trying to always help them and support them in every possible way, then probably it's a sign for you that you don't have a proper buffer or proper tools to support them and able to fail. So I think that's that.
Great, thanks. Do you have time for another one?
Yeah, I think we have 5 minutes. Yeah.
So that will be the hard one. What if this person keep falling? And does that mean that he or she is still not experienced enough to make decision by themselves, or there might be some other issue? Yeah, so then for you it's an opportunity to discover things that you never would discover before. So in that situation, we outline to the person, again, those are the rules about crunch. You should always tell and ask and don't do on your own. And if the person commits that again, then of course still we don't punish. We'll try to figure out again, why did you do that? Maybe there's a problem with the project or with the lead or the PO or the team or whatever, so you can try to discover what's the problem. And if it still continues being like that, then probably there's a problem with the person that you have to address. So I think it's still a good thing for you to discover, because then it seems that there's a problem either with the person or the team or the process or whatever that you can fix. It's better to do that in a situation when you can afford it, than in a situation when there is a huge milestone or release that you're working on and then it blew up at then. So, yeah. Thank you.
Hello, thank you for the talk.
Yeah, thanks.
Now I have a question about, you mentioned trust and building trust a lot. So from your experience, from your observations, on average, how long did it take you to build that trust in those teams once you got to that environment?
It depends. There's no, unfortunately, there's no a nice time frame that you can work with. In my case, I had a little bit favor of the team being so unhappy with the current management and all that the company was doing, that they saw that that I was that fresh air, so they, this is the outsider that will change everything. So a lot of people had hopes with that, and by implementing all those things, it gave a nice traction. So quickly they saw that, okay, Marcin listens, and after he listens, there's action, and I see results. So having that loop quickly allows you, I think that's the quickest way to build that trust. But obviously, there will be situations when I have still, one of my leads still doesn't trust the top management and company. They trust me, but they don't trust the project or the company itself. So there's also be different varieties of who they trust, because again, as I told, trust is not only between you and the person or inside the team, it's going to be around everybody on different levels. I think it's patience. Like, as my mom told me, trust is the most valuable resource. If you lose that trust, it's going to take you a huge while to fix it. So I think it's only patience and believing that in yourself and your skills, because ultimately you're the lead. If at some point you have to also have a cutoff point, right? Like if you have a person that after all that effort and everything doesn't trust you, then I think you have to revise the relationship with that person and be like, hey, it won't change either way. We will be working together with each other. So either you accept me as your lead and trust me, or you have to find another project, because we cannot work without trust, right? So I made that mistake several times when I tried to fix the relationship with a person for a very long time, and then the problem spilled out not only to me and that person, but also to the whole team and the project. So try to also have a cutoff point. So if at some point you think that it's not working, so either change methods or revise, try to find out what's the problem. Because if you implemented all those things and there's still something wrong, then there's something wrong and you have to fix it very fast, because you cannot allow that situation to have for a long time.
Thank you.
I have a person in the back. Or we don't have time? So, okay, last question? Okay, last question, are we done? Thank you.
Hello, thank you for a great talk. And I wanted to ask, do you have any tips with dealing with cases of extreme lack of motivation in the team members, basically? And once the team member is approached with the issue, there is also a refusal to do anything about it, basically. So it's like complete shut off, basically. And any tips how to start or diagnose the issue, basically?
Yeah, thank you. Great question. I had those, and I had two resolvement on that. So in one, unfortunately, we have to say goodbye to that person. Like, no matter what we did, the damage was so big that there's diminishing returns. Like, you can try to save the world, but you cannot save everyone. So unfortunately, it was just best for everyone just to part ways. But in the second situation, for a long time, we had a person that was very demotivated, and then they said that they were delivering results when we didn't see those results. And the best thing, and also worked for me when the team wanted to dismiss me. The last chance of rescue was maybe let's switch tasks or projects. And then in my case, it worked. The next manager was very happy with my performance, and it saved me and the project of having, I think the producer after that said that it was the best decision in his life to switch me to another project, because we delivered Gwent and Thronebreaker with great success. And in this case, we also switched teams. So we basically told, in this environment, you cannot succeed. So switch to another team, another task. And he obviously was scared and wanted to refuse, but basically, okay, either you do this or we have to part ways. He was okay, let's move. And then when he changed the environment, he changed the team. Miraculously, he's a new person. So there are ways to do that. Probably the changing environment. If the person in that environment is unhappy, then probably the best way is to change the environment. But again, also the another question that I answered, probably having those facts, having those situation, behavior, impact, having those objectives and key results, so you can bring those emotional talks when the person usually will be super emotional. Like if they are demotivated, they will usually say how they are happy. So you have to bring the conversation back to facts and move from there. So I think those are the best things you can do. And with that, we're done. Thank you so much, guys.
Yeah, thank you.